Hello, everyone from across the country. My name is Frankie Chenna, and I am the host of the FDT Canadian Public Speaking Contest, and I'm also the founding director of Fostering Debate Talent Academy. Thank you all for being here. We are so excited to run this competition for Canadians across the country in grades 4 to 12, and thank you so much for joining us. FDT decided to run this competition for a few reasons. First of all, we wanted to try to find a positive spin on COVID-19. This is a very troubling time for so many Canadians and for people around the world that we thought by having students write speeches about the future and about the heroes of COVID-19 that we could hopefully spread a little positive light on the issue. We also wanted to donate to a worthy cause, which is why we decided to give $5 for every entry received to Food Banks Canada. And later on this evening, we're going to be giving them their check and meeting their CEO as well. So we're very, very excited to be able to help out a noble cause. And finally, we wanted to give students something to do. So many things are canceled due to COVID-19, whether it be clubs, competitions, functions, graduations, and we thought maybe we could do our part by offering at least one opportunity for students. So we really hope that the 190 students that entered gained something from the competition, and we also hope that our finalists did as well. Thank you so much to the preliminary judges who judged all 190 submissions and helped narrow it down to just 21 finalists. Thank you to the mentors. Our finalists were each assigned a mentor, an FDT instructor, or an alumni to work with to help perfect their speeches for today. So thank you so much to all of them for their involvement. And a huge thank you to our 3 judges who are joining us today from their homes in various places. And they are an extremely talented and qualified panel of judges, and they all share a couple of things in common, but the key thing they share in common is that they all competed at the World Speech Championship. So for those of you who are in grade 8 to 12, every year there is the World Speech Championship, which welcomes the top speakers from across the world to come together and compete. And joining us as our judges today, we have Lily Kim, who competed in 2016 in Pennsylvania. We have Simran Chima, who also competed with Lily in 2016 in Pennsylvania. And we have Maggie McInnes, who competed in 2018 in South Africa. They're all now pursuing higher education, and they have an endless list of debate and speech awards that they obtained over their high school debating careers, which I will not go into in depth right now, but please know that these are 3 very, very qualified ladies judging you this evening. So without further ado, you're going to be watching 10 presentations of 10 Canadians from across the country who've made it to the final round. And our judges are going to choose 3 to move on to the grand finals. And those 3 will be competing for scholarships between $1,000 and $2,000. So the stakes are high. We're very excited to finally get to see these presentations. And I'm going to welcome our first speaker right now from St. Robert Catholic High School in Ontario, Sheri Shu.
Hi everyone, I'm Sheri Shu, and sorry, do I start right now? Okay, do I go ahead? Just making sure, okay. Flash forward 20 years for a second, and consider we've developed a new technology, a bracelet that's able to track our health and the places we've been. Your government, trying to brush past the catastrophe that was 2020, mandates the wearing of the bracelet 24/7. It's great at helping you realize you're sick before you show any symptoms, but it also looks at every store you visit and every emotion you feel when confronted by police or staring into the eyes of a politician. My question for you is simple. Do you wear the bracelet? Throughout human history, pandemics have uprooted the very fabrics of our society, and COVID-19 is no different. Look, we've all figured out how to use Zoom, realized the deep-seated need we have for human attention, and tragically watched as 3.6 million have been infected by this disease. Millions more when you consider those unemployed or at risk in essential services. But there's another issue we're not considering here. And that's the debate over public security in the midst of this pandemic emergency. Many countries are considering the implementation of surveillance laws for citizens in the interest of public health. To look at why this kind of makes sense, let's think of a society in a different light, perhaps through the perspective of an anthill. Now, all ants have the instinctive goal of preserving the well-being of their colony, even at the cost of their own safety. This is why ants leave behind pheromones as location detectors, why even diseased or dying ants will release specific chemical signals, signaling for others to take them away from the population, the collective wealth of information leading the colony to success. In the same way, Western liberal democracies are struggling to draw the line between preserving their citizens' rights of freedom, liberty, and movement, and restricting them for the benefit of the colony. Now, because COVID-19 spreads exponentially within mere hours, quick information about who's contracted a disease and where they've been can be monumental in curbing the spread. Consider the results happening in South Korea, countries surprisingly effective at curbing their spread despite their proximity to the outbreak. This was largely the result of a radical change in policy, in which the federal government could use big data and security footage to monitor movement, then route information to private apps or websites telling citizens to avoid areas where previous patients had been. In China, my own grandparents are being told to put information on cell phone apps, and then this information being translated into health color codes to be interpreted by the government. Even in Canada, Quebec police are considering the usage of cell phone signals to control people that are not adhering to social distancing. All these developments in technology can potentially make it much easier for big governments to control the spread and save lives. But we have to consider the risks that come with giving our information away. Like, who has access to it? How is it controlled or protected? And how are the metrics used? Personally, I'm not too comfortable with the RCMP getting a notification every single time I catch a few sniffles. But what if the information hurts us or our families? What if 4 interest groups or private companies get their hands and they use it for advancing their agendas and not for our well-being? What if it gets into the hands of authoritarian nations who use the pandemic as justification for harsher rights violations? As extreme as the idea of a tracking bracelet may be, it could soon be a reality. Whoa, okay. Did I just cause your existing 2020 panic response to kick into overdrive? I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention. I only wanted to help you realize how surveillance can be both helpful and harmful in different circumstances. But more importantly, we, as free-thinking, informed Canadian citizens, have the power to make these decisions about government control and call out our leaders if they cross a line. Once again, we're the worker ants, the most important members of the colony. As the pandemic continues to spread, as more people awaken to their rights and civil duties, perhaps we'll be able to see greater voter engagement, transforming our crippled society into one that works better for us, surveillance or not. Now that's going to be an uprising our citizens will have to watch out for. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our first contestant, Sheri Shu. Our second contestant comes from British Columbia, West Point Grey Academy, Rafiq Kassam Jawani.
The world after quarantine will never be the same, we lament. Hell yeah. Hair will need combing, makeup will be pulled into action, deodorant will have to come out of retirement. Matching socks, iron shirts, breath mints. I'm going to have to wear pants to school. Jokes aside, our world's future will depend on the choices we make. We have the chance, individually and collectively, to hit the reset button. Opportunity follows calamity. While humans have been forced to stop, the Earth has been allowed to breathe. The WHO estimates that pollution kills 4.2 million people annually. According to NASA, levels of nitrogen dioxide, a byproduct of burning fossil fuels, has decreased by 30% in China since the pandemic. Researchers say this has likely saved 75,000 lives. In New York, carbon monoxide emissions have decreased by 50%. In Istanbul, air pollution has dropped 35%. Dolphins have returned to the canals of Venice, and the sky in New Delhi has been revealed. Whether this is a springboard for environmental rejuvenation depends not on coronavirus, but on us. Do we choose carpooling and electric cars? Do we take meetings virtually and choose to fly less? Do we choose to buy from manufacturers who use renewable energy? We have choices to make. Reevaluating our individual and national priorities will be essential for a healthier world. In 2018, the world spent $1.8 trillion on military expenditure. Yet today, nations are scrambling to find 75-cent masks. We possess enough missiles to destroy the world, but we don't have enough ventilators to keep our people alive. According to the WHO, 3.8 billion people lack basic health care, and 750 million don't have clean water to wash their hands. Viruses don't need passports to cross borders. The pandemic has demonstrated that if one of us gets sick, all of us are at risk. We need to ask ourselves, what's truly important? Do we choose leaders who build walls and buy weapons, or those who invest in disaster planning, education, health? Do we choose to spend $100 on a third pair of sneakers, or do we donate it to UNICEF? We have choices to make. Before COVID, we spent life staring at our phones, oblivious to all that was around us. Now, all we have is our phones, and we realize that it's not enough. We are craving a different kind of FaceTime. This pandemic has shown us how crucial our relationships with each other are. 79% of Canadians polled by Angus Reid said that the first thing they want to do after quarantine is hug friends and family. In Italy, people in the depths of despair connected by singing together on their balconies. Our heroes are no longer inconsequential reality TV stars, but healthcare workers. We need to look at what truly matters. Do we return to our phones, or do we appreciate friends sitting beside us? Do we turn to retail therapy, or do we turn to each other when we need comfort? Do we get consumed by life's busyness, or do we pause to appreciate the things we've taken for granted? We have choices to make. The world after quarantine will never be the same. Our world has been brought to its knees. That we will rise is not a question. The question is how we will rise. We have choices to make.
Thank you very much, Rafiq. Next, we have contestant number 3 from Ontario, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Secondary School, Anna Simone Roshdi.
Do I start?
You may begin.
My dad came home and yelled, "Did you hear? Can you believe it?" I thought he would tell us the usual exciting news. Anything to keep us happy in quarantine. But what followed shook me down to the core. I was not prepared for this. The last patient with the coronavirus in Canada has recovered. Quarantine is over. I didn't know how to feel. I guess this is what we wished for, right? Good afternoon, judges. This is the world after quarantine. It's been 3 weeks since quarantine ended. Everything's opened again, but everyone's more closed off than ever before. I've been waiting to go to this one store in the mall. It's finally open, but I can't. I'm afraid. Then came Mass, when it was time to give peace to one another. I bent down as if to get something, to avoid contact with anyone. Why? Because I'm afraid. My best friend, the one person whose separation caused me the most pain, came to hug me. I stepped away. Understanding what I had just done, I apologized. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know what that was. I ran home right after. Why did I do this? I am afraid. Quarantine built something within me, within most of us, a set of reactions. No, a mindset, a mentality to avoid each other. All of those weeks wishing it would be over. Now it is, and it's not like anything I had ever imagined. Everything may be open as if Corona never happened. It's the people. That's what changed. Eventually, I came around and hung out with my friends. We explored the city. After so long, it felt new. It was strange to see the streets filled. People without masks and crowds less than 6 feet apart. Like old times, my friends and I started laughing. For a moment, just a moment, I forgot about the last few months. I forgot about the coronavirus. But then a cough. The food court went silent. We all jolted as if we were in danger, but we weren't. Corona was over, quarantine was over. But when we heard that cough, we were brought back. Back to the times when less than 6 feet was a crime. When people would fight in stores for their basic essentials, and when a cough meant you run. Post-traumatic stress disorder, a mental condition that is caused by a terrifying event, either witnessing it or experiencing it. Symptoms include flashbacks, extreme anxiety, and uncontrollable thoughts about the event. But we don't have PTSD. All we did was stay at home. It wasn't traumatic, right? I disagree. We were confined to our homes for several months. Yes, you can go outside, but no talking, walking, or breathing near anyone from another household, at least within 6 feet. Yes, you can go to the store, but you have to wear a mask. Even though it makes you feel like you can't even breathe, don't worry, it protects you and just adds to the list of stresses after, is there enough food in this cart for my family? Did that person take the last Lysol bottle? And oh my gosh, this lineup is at least 3 hours long with everyone standing 6 feet apart. I don't have enough time to make it back for dinner. Not to mention every waking moment that you are at home allegedly de-stressing, your phone buzzes with more news on the coronavirus, about its spread, its symptoms, the amount of deaths, the best mask. Here's the most effective way to not get corona. That was quarantine. And we're expected to act as if none of that ever happened. There are predictions on the stock market, the environment, politics, but did anyone stop and think about how we would feel? What we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. Brittany Brown. Life after quarantine will not be back to normal. The transition period from quarantine to the world after quarantine will be bizarre. We'll each go through it differently, but we will all go through it. This society works like a moving machine. Once the world goes from pause to play, the expectation is to forget, move on, and operate. But humans aren't machines. Surviving a pandemic is one thing, but surviving mentally is quite another. I know that in a world after quarantine, students will be behind with their education, and adults will be rushed back to work for the sake of the economy, with all of us playing an excessive game of catch-up. But we need to remember that surviving the coronavirus pandemic is not easy. And in a world after quarantine, we need to consider our mental health. Yes, it may be this generation's first time surviving a pandemic, but this time we have mental health on the radar. And I believe we can do this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna Simone. It's now time for speaker number 4 from Saskatchewan Centennial Collegiate, David Ojefo.
The world after quarantine. Nobody dreamt, nobody conceived, nobody knew that a time such as this could and would happen, but it happened. Remembering the famous quote by Anne Aguirre, I shake my head But I can't change this. I only wear the scars as I've always done, as I ever do. We can never go back to the way things were because there'll always be the scars of crisis, seen and unseen, visible or invisible, that thrust the world to its knees like a lion to an adder, gripping its neck for a meal at dawn's finest hour. It took the tremendous force of COVID-19 to tear us down, but it took the tremendous force of COVID-19 to stand together and to unite as one. So as we keep our distance, stay at home and learn through our devices. Little by little, slowly but surely, our world is changing. And as our world changes, we change with it. We were all used to the pleasures of in-person visits, dates, lunches, long drives, church services, classrooms, movies, and our beloved work. We loved it all. We lost it all. But we're doing what is deemed necessary, playing our parts during this sequestered period. Be as it may, what would the world come to after the pass of the isolation episode? Skeptical, judicious, cautious, will be characters displayed by more than just our friends and family. Individuals will fear the thought of being in contact with one another. In fact, teamwork in a work setting will be achieved through video chats, phone calls, emails, and text. Physical interactions will be like a distant memory in most companies. If people didn't have a reason to trust people before, they have a reason now. In the midst of it all, we cannot forget our education system. Because of this crisis, the class of 2020 will never experience the true joy of our graduation ceremony. College classes are never going to be the same, with college students sitting exactly one seat apart in fear of their own safety. Under these conditions, it is safe to say that students will prefer to be taught online. Virtual classrooms will be the new norm of teaching. Our old schooling system would be no more. The dear education we place so much pride on will take on a new form. Like the biblical quote states, out with the old and in with the new. In the midst of it all, we cannot forget our companies, firms, and small businesses that were affected by this economic earthquake. Some stood strong and pushed through the storm, while some were ripped and torn to shreds. Even though it will be business as usual, we also know that companies will increase the diligence in their operations. For example, restaurants will be including new sets of practices such as wearing gloves, constantly cleaning and sanitizing everything that is touched, limiting how many people can come into their stores, and shortening business hours. Companies will ensure measures to make sure that crisis like this will never happen again in the near future. But one thing I know is that for the sake of their lives, friends, families, mothers, individuals, and even best friends will further place barriers and walls. Not only will they abstain from touch, but they'll also abstain from making new connections and making new relationships. Even though the quarantine stage is over, nobody knows what lies ahead. Travels will be limited. Shopping will be limited. Social interactions will be limited. Our lives will be limited. We are living through a historic moment, a moment that can change the world as we know it. Because of social distancing, everything we took for granted vanished right before our eyes. However, we became more aware. We became more grateful for our health. We became more grateful for our safety, and we became more grateful for the survival of our loved ones. We can never go back to the way things were because our conditions are changing. It will change the way we act. It will force us to imbibe new cultures and practices, such as praying for those who were affected by this crisis. Yes, we will have the scars. It is written in our history. But as we look back from our world with hand sanitizers in the hands of every individual and face masks everywhere we turn, we peek into the history books of children, our children, at page 143. There you'll find a chapter known as the world after quarantine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. Next up, we have speaker number 5 from Ontario, from Mark Garneau Collegiate Institute, Tyra Mehta.
Hi, I'm just gonna set myself up really quickly. Let me know if you can hear me or if everything's okay.
I can hear you.
All right. Can I start?
Yes.
Thanks. I want to tell you a story. It's the story of a world run by the American dream. A world where retail therapy soothes the empty hearts of its citizens, convincing them that the more you have, the happier you will be. It's where the wretched hands of corporations make billions off of the single lie that depression can be fixed with designer. And if you can't afford designer, if you work a minimum wage job, if you don't fit into the ideals of this dream, this lie, then you don't deserve to be happy. So people invest their time and money into flashy jewelry, cars, and clothes instead of people and passions, because happiness can only come from the jealousy and the validation of the people around them. This is a system that can never let its people be happy, because nobody can ever win. But the citizens don't know that. So what happens when all of a sudden, the people of this world lose it all? All of a sudden, regardless of how much money you have, how flashy your jewelry is, and how many people love you, you are at risk. Suddenly, you can lose it all. The fame, the money, the accolades, and the dream. The dream that made you work to the bone with the promise that money can buy you the one thing that life simply never could: happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our world right now. On the 30th of January, COVID-19 was declared a public health emergency of international concern. With over 4 million cases, 300,000 fatalities, and 44% of Canadians losing their jobs, COVID-19 has shown no mercy to money. And it may seem bleak. I, like many others, am scared. Not just for me, but for the people that I love. My grandparents, a single swipe of my phone away, yet still 7,000 miles apart. My best friends, a text close, but never close enough to hug. So close, yet so painfully far. And for once, I'm not alone. From being in denial, being isolated, with the only human interaction being that through a screen, the world seems like a consistent down spiral. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm here to serve as someone who can show you the light at the end of this dark tunnel we call COVID. You've most likely heard leaders say that things will get bad before they can get better. And this is not just true for the COVID quarantine, but for the future of our world after it as well. This is true for 2 reasons. The first being that through tough times, we learn to value the good times so much more. Before quarantine, our lives were fast-paced and robotic. We were desensitized towards appreciating the small things and gestures of kindness in our life, and the beauty and simplicity of it as well. It's like the quote, "You don't know what you've got till it's gone." When you are in isolation and quarantine, away from society and the people that you love, you slowly start to feel gratitude for the things that you once took for granted. The shade of the trees, the sweet smell of the breeze at dawn, the people that you love, and the ability to live life freely without any constraint. When you learn to find solace in the essence of life itself, you end up with something far more valuable than money could ever buy: happiness. Second, we learn to be unified. COVID is not just impacting an individual, it's battling all of humankind together. You aren't different from your neighbor or the person on the street singing for money, because at the end of it, you are both simply human. And we started to realize this. I'm talking about the people in Italy singing on their balconies together. I'm talking about us showing a newfound appreciation for store owners, doctors, and first aid response people that we simply don't commemorate enough. Previous competition between people has turned into cooperation, collaboration, and unification. Because as lonely as we may seem during quarantine, we are fighting together. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 2 ways this story can end. The first being that we go back into who we were before. Back into a competition with simply no winners, back into a competition for a winning spot in a consumerist world. The second being that we evolve to be grateful. Be grateful for the little coffee shop down the block. Be grateful for the people in your life that you care about. Go out of your way to help those who can't help themselves, because you know what it's like to feel helpless. Together, we can spread happiness and revolutionize the world together and end competition between people once and for all. And the best part, it's all up to you. You have the power to revolutionize the world with your perspective. So, which ending will you choose? It's all in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tyra. We are halfway through our grade 8 to 12 finals, and it's time for speaker number 6 from Ontario, the Country Day School, Ethan Waba.
Can you hear me? Death, severe illness, job loss, isolation, and homelessness. These are just some of the many horrific challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. But today, I'm going to talk to you about an issue that at first, well, it may seem superficial, but is in fact crucial to not only my mental health, physical health, and development, but to that of an entire generation of young people. The dilemma we now face is how to develop and sustain close and intimate relationships in a post-COVID-19 world in which continued physical distancing prevents any sort of close or intimate contact. Hi, my name is Ethan Waba, and I'm a grade 8 boy, and as many my age do, longs for a meaningful romantic relationship. Typically, this is a time in my life for flirtation, exploration, and experimentation, but that is difficult when for the next few months, and maybe even years, social distancing will become the new normal. Today, I will first stress the importance of close, intimate relationships in our youth. Second, I will dive into some of the problems the dating world now faces. And third and finally, I will offer a few solutions on how we can embrace this new normal while staying emotionally connected and loved at the same time. So first then, what are the importance of close and intimate relationships in our youth? Well, although most adolescents' relationships only last between a few weeks and a few months, these early relationships play a pivotal role for developing the capacity for long-term, committed relationships throughout adulthood. According to a study by Barber and Eccles in 2006, they found that the quality of youth romantic relationship plays a pivotal role in self-esteem and developing personal values regarding romance and intimacy. A lack of intimacy can lead to a sense of inadequacy, isolation, depression, and unfortunately, in the worst cases, even suicide. So second, what are some of the challenges that the dating world now faces? Well, masks and gloves will become, for the foreseeable future, this new normal. Social distancing will be in place indefinitely, and large gatherings will be rare or outright impossible. And as a grade 8 boy, this is a disaster. How can I make effective eye contact with my date when it depends on the quality of our Wi-Fi? Besides, Wi-Fi can only do so much. How can I tentatively try to hold my date's hand when we need to stand 6 feet apart and our arms just aren't that long? And as for the first kiss, well, a mask is a bit of a passion killer. In addition, dating venues will become more and more limited. And let's face it, hanging out on opposite sides of my parents' basement, well, not the classiest and most romantic option. Even a casual date to the mall will be tricky due to most stores only allowing one shopper at a time. And in restaurants and coffee shops that are open, you'll have to sit 6 feet apart. Tough to get in the mood from that distance. It is a genuine problem as we may begin to see a fear of intimacy and a reluctance to socialize in our younger generations. So third and finally, how can we embrace this new normal with open arms? Well, the key is to make the object of your affection feel loved and special. Thus, grand romantic gestures are not out of the picture. Having dates online will become more and more normal. Eating dinner over video conference is a great way to get a date-like feel without all the germs. Plus, what says love more than a surprise delivery of things to use during quarantine? frequent texting and video calls will be essential because they deliver the real-time, face-to-face contact that we would otherwise have in the real world. Love after COVID-19 can undoubtedly still be built, but with the help of technological communications. So you might realize that a post-COVID-19 world might force us to become more emotionally intimate before becoming physically intimate. And then, maybe, just maybe, you might be able to remove those gloves, take off that mask, and bring your relationship to the next level. Or you might realize that it would be a huge mistake. And in that moment of acceptance or rejection, you realize that this pandemic has brought us closer than any awkward first hug or kiss could ever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Next up, we have from St. Teresa of Lisieux Catholic High School in Ontario, Angelina Zhang.
Picture this. You wake up in the morning and attend class from the comfort of your bed, greeting classmates from Brazil, Denmark, and Kenya, all on a virtual platform with features mirroring, even exceeding that of a physical classroom. This is our future. So historically, crises have always been an inflection point for change, and the coronavirus pandemic is no different. I don't think anybody can grasp the full scope of challenges, ideologies, and innovations that the pandemic will leave behind. But one thing I do know for sure, an increasingly virtual education system will be a cornerstone of its legacy. But first, why exactly will people continue learning online even after quarantine? One obvious reason is familiarity. Throughout quarantine, students and educators grow acclimated to learning online, and a bizarre concept traverses our mind to become the plausible. But more concretely, investment in online education is soaring. Quarantine has compelled schools to funnel more resources into constructing robust online experiences. And simultaneous with this is creative disruption, a concept describing how disasters birth innovation. COVID-19 is pushing developers and entrepreneurs outside their comfort zone to create virtual solutions. Already, we see companies developing sophisticated one-stop learning environments, giving students things like auto-translation capabilities, unlimited video conferencing time, and real-time co-editing of project work, amongst a plethora of other features. And this is just the beginning. As quarantine drags on, this infrastructure may far exceed the likes of Zoom or Google Classroom. The result of this? Online learning becoming a more and more viable, appealing option in the post-quarantine world. So let's all take a step back from our doomsday lens. Yes, despite the inescapable horror of quarantine life, many benefits may emerge out of this crisis. For one, without major cash outflows associated with physical property, online education is far cheaper. 5-10 years from now, and higher education may be available to the most disenfranchised communities. Furthermore, students can learn at their own pace, pausing videos to think, or going at 2 times speed, depending on their personal proficiency. But most strikingly, students from a diverse array of geographic locations can learn under a united classroom. Envision students in India taking a virtual course at Harvard University, or teenagers in a remote village no longer having to walk miles each day just to go to class. We can see a curious commingling of ideas, transcending cultural barriers, transcending borders. But if online education truly becomes the norm after quarantine, society will be encumbered by a fresh set of challenges. Firstly, a lack of authentic social interaction, because traditionally, school has been a venue nurturing lifelong connections. But if students get acclimated to online learning, they are deprived of this. The fact is, connections that you build over online school are not as deep-rooted as those that stem from sharing a dorm together or having authentic face-to-face conversation. Exacerbating the problem, students who aren't as self-disciplined will flounder under increased expectations for independence. So ultimately, viewing the effects of quarantine through a holistic lens, I would say that the accelerated course of virtual education is a two-faced coin, fraught with alluring benefits and structural problems. But one thing remains certain: quarantine will forever alter the trajectory of education. Flash forward 10 years from now, and a child in a remote Nunavut village learns voraciously, ensconced in a comfy armchair right at home. At the same time, another student lags desperately behind, spiraling into despair without the structured environment of physical classrooms. Whether any of these actually transpire into reality remains to be seen. So it's up to us, today's generation, to fill the history books with ink. Collectively, we can strive to magnify the strengths of online learning while continuing to look for innovative solutions to its flaws. Then, and only then, can opportunities blossom out of this terrible darkness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angelina. Next, we traveled to Alberta from Strathcona Tweedsmuir School, Zaki Lakani.
There. Whether you're watching this on your couch, on your kitchen table, or secretly in your underwear, I've got a message for you. Times are changing. These past few months have forced us to confront one of the greatest global challenges in recent history. As the coronavirus pandemic continues to magnify worldwide, and as lockdowns and social distancing advisories continue to persist, it seems that our society is far removed from what it once was. But I feel it is important to remember that, like previous human health crises, this too shall pass. But it begs the question, what will things look like when it does pass? It's no secret that our futures have been thrust into uncertainty. In my view, life after quarantine will bring us together, not only in terms of physical interaction, but in enduring the fallout of this crisis as a global community. The two aspects of the world post-quarantine I wish to discuss lie in two words: rebuilding and reflecting. So first, let's discuss rebuilding. The coronavirus has left our economies and our civil societies decimated. The world has practically come to a standstill. And while we don't know how or when public places will reopen, I am confident that quarantine will enable us as citizens and our governments alike to pivot. What I mean by this is that social distancing will prepare us for a stronger re-entry into normal life. Now, while I don't know what specifically is going to occur, I mean that we're going to see huge amounts of innovation. We've all heard the adage, necessity is the mother of invention. Well, in the post-COVID era, those words could not be truer. In a technological and volatile world, we will see a surge in the culture of self-starters. Individuals who take the initiative to create solutions and recoup the losses in our daily lives that this crisis has caused. Just as Netflix Party and Zoom solved movie nights with friends and online learning, out of this quarantine will emerge the pioneers of telemedicine, mobile virus tracking, and ventilator production. From temperature scanning helmets in China to UV sanitizing robots, governments and enterprises will invest in rebuilding by creating innovative breakthroughs in technology and public health that will enable us to both reposition and future-proof ourselves. But in addition to being a period of rebuilding, life after quarantine will be a period of reflecting. No longer will we take for granted physical conversations with people we can only FaceTime now, or try new restaurants with our friends, or have the time of our lives at concerts. There is solidarity in struggle. When quarantine ends, we will each be facing similar challenges. This is a global crisis that extends beyond race, borders, or religion, and that calls on us to grant assistance to those who need it most. Now, I can't promise that the face masks and hand sanitizer will be put away immediately. And we don't have a crystal ball or a vaccine just yet. But we do have hope, optimism, and Zoom. Progress is still possible after lockdown that will enable us to adjust to the new normal, even though this progress will not occur quickly and may still need to be achieved 6 feet away from others. But I am confident that we will feel a sense of completion again as our parents return to work, our students return to school or university, and we salute those who have helped us overcome these truly unprecedented times. We may be in this for now, but we're not in this forever. And most importantly, we are in it together. We as a global community have overcome turmoil and crisis in the past, and it is my hope that this crisis will be no exception. So stay healthy and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zaki. We have just 2 speakers left in our grade 8 to 12 finals. And next up we have from the Mulgrave School in British Columbia, Ashley Wong.
Can you hear me? One day she will ask me, Mom, what did the world look like after you came out of quarantine? Did the world change? Did the world look different? What were you scared of? And I will tell her that COVID did not discriminate between race, class, gender, or sexuality. That only we did. We did it in Singapore, where thousands of workers were forced to live in cramped concrete rooms. We did it in America, where overcrowded prisons led to the disease running rampant through prison cells. We did it in Indian slums, where isolation led to starvation. And I will tell her that the pandemic shed light on all of these wrongs. But when the world woke up from quarantine, we were so quick to turn the lights back off. And she will ask, why else were you scared? And I will say, because when the world woke up from quarantine, I was scared of discrimination. Hearing another person roll down their car window and tell me to get out of Vancouver and go back to filthy China. Reading even more graffiti that said, drive them out of Canada. I was scared of seeing in your history books, COVID-19, the China virus. I was scared of racial abuse. And then the economy collapsed. People struggled to pay their bills. Landlords evicted tenants. Governments were in debt. Small businesses failed to reopen. And I was scared that it would look like this forever, that the world would stay the same. And she will ask me, did it? And I will say, no. Life after quarantine did not look like this forever. Because just as we were about to get onto that same constant wheel of life, we realized that quarantine had been a gift of introspection, a gift of perspective, a gift of reflection. And we knew that we did not want to throw this gift away. And we realized just in time that we needed to make changes. So we made changes to our environment. I tell her how we learned from 8 weeks in quarantine and slowed our global warming by reducing our carbon emissions. I tell her how we maintained lower pollution levels, inspired by how much our waste dropped during quarantine. I tell her how we established protected safe zones for animals because quarantine made us realize that sometimes we were the virus. And then I tell her about people, about the exchange of doctors from countries all around the world, about the thousands of free hotel rooms offered to healthcare workers and doctors, about the hundreds of people who volunteered for vaccination trials, about the massive increase in donations to the food bank and blood bank and charities, about kindness, about humanity. and how that kindness stayed as the world woke up from quarantine. And I will tell her that when the world woke up from quarantine, it was tough, it was scary. And I wish that someone had been able to tell me that even though it was hard, even though it was terrifying, eventually it would all get better. Because sometimes the only thing that we can count on is the kindness of other people. That COVID was horrible and tragic, but it also brought people and countries and the world together like never before. That we are all human and we are all in this together. She will ask me, "So, Mom, everything got better then?" And I will look at her and I will smile and I will say, "Yes, thank you."
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's now time for our final contestant. Judges, we would ask after this speech to please submit your ballots before you give feedback. And I would now like to welcome our 10th and final contestant from College Stanislas in Quebec, Nabil Anuti.
Awesome. Okay. In 3 months, my friends and I will be going off to college. Will we be moving into dorms or residences? No. Will we be meeting a bunch of new people at parties and events? Not really. In fact, at this point, I'm hesitant to even call it going off to college, since we'll all be staying in our hometowns doing classes on Zoom. On the bright side, I'm currently participating in a national public speaking competition in which the majority of judges, participants, and audience members aren't even in the same province. How cool is that? All this to say, the coronavirus pandemic is upending life as we know it. We're seeing businesses closing their doors and unprecedented measures being taken, tearing at the traditional social fabric of cities and disrupting national economies. Just as this quarantine has shattered lives, it will lead to permanent shifts in the ways we live, work, play, and learn. So what will normal be like after quarantine? I'll start by discussing potential economic outcomes, to then examine the post-quarantine social and health repercussions, and then finally touch on possible political effects. The immediate effects of quarantine suggest that no one will come out of this without losing something, whether it be a loved one or financial stability. It is hard to predict how things will be economically because a pandemic of this scale has only happened once before in 1918, but that does not mean the future is completely uncertain. From what we've seen, COVID-19 is a testament to the massive cost of declining global trade and to our dependence on the global supply chain, even for essential medical supplies. Just like after the financial crisis of 2008, global trade will surely resume. But when it comes to work life, things will change. For example, we might not revert back to cubicle type offices anytime soon. Unemployment might continue to rise, and working at home might become more widespread. Although markets will recover, we probably will see the physical world's economy slowly disappearing. Everyone is sitting at home, living life through their devices. Thus, the digital ecosystem is thriving. This means that tech firms will become more powerful and their products more ubiquitous than ever before. There will also be serious repercussions when it comes to health, mental health, and social norms. First, an increase of faith and investments in scientists and experts is very plausible. Additionally, since media coverage of the pandemic is very widespread, people could become more engaged and invested in health and government matters. Also, as we try to flatten the curve, efficiency is becoming central to every hospital's operations. Technology could consequently become more prevalent in healthcare spaces. Socially, the very essence of concepts like touch and physical contact are being questioned. One could thus expect a post-quarantine world where people are more conscious of their physical selves, perhaps helping combat unwanted advances in the workplace. Lastly, government surveillance might skyrocket after quarantine, as we've seen it to be effective to fight the virus in some countries that are using geolocalization to track people and make sure they're staying at home. These moves, although currently justified, will surely affect people's perception of modern technology and political landscapes, which brings me to our last point. How will this quarantine affect politics and international relations? Every country is experiencing the strain of this disease, as is every individual. In a post-quarantine world, one of two political scenarios might thus unfold. The first scenario examines nations reducing international cooperation and seeing a rise in nationalism. Some political entities might even exploit the fear of foreign threats that may arise. The second political scenario that might unfold examines nations' interdependence and says that democracies will eventually find a new type of protective internationalism that will prevail in the long term. Nevertheless, the shock to our societies that this pandemic is bringing has the potential to disrupt today's escalating political and cultural divisiveness and polarization. Behind this is the concept of the common enemy, in which people look past their differences when faced with a common threat like COVID-19, engaging in open-minded discussions and finding middle ground. Lastly, there is a growing justification to demand incentives to reduce inequality we're seeing. Things like universal basic income or universal healthcare for countries that don't have it. We might not know exactly how things will be in a post-quarantine world, but there is reason to be optimistic and hopeful. Although this pandemic isn't a literal war, it requires a strong collective effort, and it is known that societies that go through such challenging times develop stronger ties. In every corner of the world, the power of the human spirit is present, and people are realizing its tremendous power. During World War II, the British government displayed a message to citizens to boost their morale. It said, "Keep calm and carry on." This will be more relevant than ever before after quarantine. No matter what lies ahead, ça va bien aller, mantendremos la calma y continuaremos, and we will keep calm and carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Nabil, and thank you to all 10 of our finalists. Congratulations, and thank you for sharing your presentations with us. Could the three judges please submit their ballots? And after the three judges have done that, we're going to hear from them with some general words of feedback and hopefully some words of wisdom, as they have all been in your shoes many, many, many times before. After that, we are then going to announce the 3 grade 4 to 7 and the 3 grade 8 to 12 finalists. But before all of that, I'd like to welcome our business development manager, also my mother, Kathy Chenna, to speak to all of you a little bit about FDT and yeah, whatever else she wants to say. So here she is, Kathy Chenna.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I was listening in the other room, and the speeches were fantastic. The judges definitely have their work cut out for them. I actually listened and watched 188 speeches, believe it or not, and congratulations on being the top 10 in this category. The juniors have been waiting, like Frankie said, and they've been watching all of your speeches and taking little tidbits from what you do so they can improve their speeches moving forward if they decide to take a path in public speaking. I am the Director of Business Development here at FDT Academy, and what we do is everything from weekly group classes all the way to private lessons. We also offer 40+ tournaments per year, and we're doing them all online. I have to say that I'm very proud of our team and everything that we're doing with Zoom and everything online, and we're even hosting a very large world competition come July that would have been in person with 350 delegates from all over the world, but we're doing it on a platform similar to this, and it's going to be fantastic. So I like to think of us as the pioneers when it comes to online learning and teachings and doing things like this, and making it, you know, a viable option for kids that are so passionate about debate and speaking. So if you have any questions about who we are, you can see all the FDT around me here. Check us out at fdtacademy.com. And I know that the other students are watching as well, and we're waiting for the submissions to come in with the judges. So please submit. And as soon as you've done that, let me know. Maggie, how about you? Are you done?
I just submitted, yes.
Fantastic. Simran, how about yourself?
She's in. She's ready to go.
And Lily, how about you?
I just need a minute.
Okay, no problem. No pressure. Take your time. This is very important. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go across the list here and just tell me one thing that somebody doesn't know about you. Nabil, you're first.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So something that no one knows about me, that I don't really like to share this, but I tried out for The Voice when I was like 12 or like 11, and only went through the first round, completely failed the rest. But yeah.
Do you have,
It
sorry,
was-
I have to ask the question on this one, sorry. Do you have, are one of your parents American?
No, but Canadian. We did The Voice Canada. There's a version here in Montreal, and they were like auditioning. So
Oh,
try it
amazing.
out.
Good for
Yeah.
you. We're all about being on TV. We were recently on Family Feud, so no problem there.
Awesome.
And
Okay.
I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Ashley, you're next.
I'm a competitive swimmer. Yeah, here in BC. So
You're in the water, what, 6 days a week?
8 to 9 times a week. Yeah.
9 times. Yeah. Wow. How is it working with social distancing?
So they actually closed down the pools here in Vancouver, and we're not quite sure how it's going to look when the season starts again. But fingers crossed. Hopefully, we can get back in the pool.
Great. Great. Thanks so much. Zaki, you're next.
I think a lot of people know this, but maybe you guys don't. I am like highly afraid of dogs.
Oh, wow. Now we know. Angelina, how about you?
Sorry, that took a lot of time. I don't really have anything particularly interesting, but I've been a competitive fencer for 6 years now.
Oh, see, that's very cool. Good for you. Let's see, who else? Ethan. Ethan, you've been talking up a storm. I saw you a few days ago at another competition, and here you are again. What is something that we don't know about you? You like to talk?
Yeah, but I only started doing public speaking about 1.5 years ago.
Oh, wow. Look how far you've come. That's fantastic. Let's see. David, you're next.
I play about 7 to 8 different type of sports.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite one? Do you have a favorite?
My favorite one is volleyball, followed by football and soccer.
Very good. And Anna, how about yourself?
I'm a bit of a daredevil. I've had a snake around my neck. I love roller coasters. I've eaten crickets.
Oh, good. You just sound like you're just ready for Survivor or something. One of those reality TV shows.
Yeah.
Rafiq, how about yourself?
Something interesting about me is I'm a pretty good grape catcher. If I throw a grape in the air, there's a good chance I'll catch it with my mouth.
Oh, very nice. Well done. Okay. Sherry, how about yourself?
Adding on to the list of extracurriculars, I used to be a competitive synchronized swimmer for like 2-ish years. And,
yeah. Okay, well, good to know. Have I missed anybody? Okay, so it looks like the judges have all submitted, and I'm going to go to the judges now and ask them to give some general feedback to all of you before we start drum rolling and letting you know the juniors will probably be announced first and then the seniors, and then we'll go right into the grand finals, you guys. So it's just back-to-back exciting entertainment here. Lily, why don't you go first?
Hi, okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Lily, and thank you for having me. It was really fun kind of jumping back into the speech world that I haven't been in for a little bit. So I thought the topic was going to be a little bit difficult because it's so timely that you have to approach it with a level of sensitivity and also try to stand out from the other speeches that have the same topic, and I thought you guys did that really well. One thing I was focused on while watching you guys was about fluidity and how natural you sound, because even if a speech is informative and it is a persuasive speech and a formal one, I think it's important for the listener to be welcomed into the speech and for it to be easy to follow. I think the best way to do that is to be very conscious about what you're talking about and present in the moment, rather than trying to remember every word that you've written in your speech. I'm very guilty of that. I used to stay up and try to memorize every word, but that sometimes isn't the best way to go about a persuasive speech. A little thing about gestures, you guys are obviously very advanced speakers, but I think it's important especially when you move on to the grand finals or go on to harder competitions, is that your gestures seem very intentional and are purposeful and aren't always on cue about what you're talking about, which makes things more natural and more fluid. But overall, it was really easy to listen to, and thanks so much.
Thank you. How about yourself next, Maggie?
Yeah. Oh, am I muted?
No, I can hear you. You're good.
The speeches were also wonderful. You know, I remember the process of writing a speech, coming up with the idea, memorizing the speech, all of that being really challenging. And so I appreciate that so much effort was put into it. And the thing that surprised me, similar to Lily, was, you know, you all had this same topic, but all your speeches were so distinct and unique to you. And I really appreciated that in terms of just entertainment for the judges, but also, you know, showing the skills that you have through your writing. Some suggestions, kind of two things I want to say just from like what I was looking for and what I thought stood out in terms of the best speeches. The first thing is structure. So I love speeches that approach topics either from a thematic point of view, so they break down the elements of the topic, you know, into kind of clear themes or categories, and they move through it in terms of those different themes or categories. Not just from a judging point of view, it allows us to follow your speech and kind of bookmark the different ideas that you have, but from a writing point of view, it allows you to be really emotive and kind of tailor your writing to the specific thing that you want to discuss and make impactful in your speech. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that I think really stands out for me in a speech like this, which is talking about, you know, current affairs and kind of news, and a lot of you gave us stats, things like that, is to add a personal element, to have a little moment in your speech that brings it back to you and how, you know, you're going to feel after this is over and how it will affect your life and those around you. And that personal element is so powerful, especially given the topic, given the emotional nature of this issue. But otherwise, you know, I think overall you guys are all so talented, and it was so nice to listen to your speeches. So thank you.
Great. And last but not least, we have Simran.
Hi guys, I'm Simran. First of all, thank you so much for all of your preparation. We could all definitely tell that you guys have worked really hard, so you should give yourself a pat on the back, because personally I have not been equally as productive during my quarantine time. Just if I could give some points of feedback. Obviously you guys are all exceptional speakers, and that being said, you all have distinct style. However, when it comes to style, you want to make sure that there's variety in how you're speaking. So almost everybody had high energy, but the impact of a high energy speaking style when the entire speech is high energy is pretty low. So I want to challenge everybody to work on variety of tone, speed, volume, all of those things. And I think the best speeches, at least in my eyes, are the ones that reflected this type of exceptional speaking style. A way to go about that is focusing on having perhaps a little bit more of a conversational approach to a topic, and then going from there to make it to the level of professional that you see fit. Yeah, I share the sentiments of my co-workers, my co-judges here. And overall, thank you everybody. And yeah, let's see what Kathy has for us next.
Well, what I have for you next is Frankie to my left. So it's time for me to skedaddle. So you guys can find out what all the results are. Good luck, everybody. Congratulations. You've come so far. And I always hate this part because I want to just be a cliche and say that everyone's a winner, but only 3 can move forward from the junior category and 3 from the senior. So good luck. Without further ado, here comes Frankie.
Okay, so we do have our juniors and our seniors with us. So if everyone could please turn their camera on, we want to spotlight you if you have made it to the next round. I want to once again thank Maggie, Lily, and Simran for being with us and for submitting their ballots and providing their input and feedback. So thank you so much to the three of them. And without further ado, I'm now going to announce. Now, the 6 of you that are moving on, you will present at 5:30 p.m. Pacific tonight, which is in just 20 minutes. And you will be presenting for a new panel of judges. And I'll talk to you guys about them a little bit later. So if you have made it to the next round, please stay with us on the call. And to everyone else, thank you so much for entering. Thank you so much for presenting your speeches this evening. It was a pleasure to watch all of you. In the junior category, moving on, in no particular order, we have Jin Zhao and Millie Steinman. Finally, Pratika Lahiri. And in the senior category, moving on, based on these 3 judges' scores, we have Ashley Wong, Tyra Mehta. Now, Tyra has left us for a moment. I hope that she feels better and is able to return. If not, we will have a reserve contestant, but Tyra, hopefully someone is letting you know these results right now. And finally, Zaki Lakhani. So congratulations to our 6 finalists. Judges, thank you so much. You're welcome to leave the call now. And to everyone else, we will be in touch about your $100 prize for making it this far. We'll let you know about that tomorrow. And thank you so much to those who have not advanced. To the 6 who have advanced, please stay with us. We're gonna now end the recording and end the stream. So thank you all for watching.